Hey guys, it is Gem Warrior, and if it looks like I am wearing makeup, it is because I am. Uh, if you've not seen a video I did on pain, dealing with pain and darkness, uh, then you may be wondering why I'm wearing this. And basically, anytime I do any really heavy root work or conjuring or spell work or whatever language you want to use, whenever I'm doing some heavy magic, I I decorate my face and usually my body with a lot of paint and stuff like that. So I just did some really big root work with this talisman that my sister got me a long time ago, maybe like 2007. It's a skull. She got it from Barbados, and the person who sold it to her um, actually said, "Hey, you should get this for your brother." And she said, "How would you even know I had a brother?" And the person said, "Oh, he needs this." Which is like a great marketing technique, right? But it also seemed to have like this mystical connotation, you know? And she was like, "Oh my god, I have to get this," because she knows about me being pagan. And so she was like, "Jake, this was totally meant to be." And I I assured her that it was probably a lucky guess on the merchant's part, but I do like it. Um, Little skull. From Barbados. But anywho, I was doing some root work with this, with the concepts of death and death of the aggressive self and um the like invitation and welcoming in of the um like I don't know how to describe it other than say feminine, than the feminine self. Um Lipstick on the cup. Anywho, I yeah, I just did that and it was really great. And now I'm kind of coming out of it. And yeah, so if I'm doing something like right now, I'm adorning myself with some tea tree oil in my hair. Just kind of helps ground me. So, anywho, I thought I would segue from that because I was feeling so good into a video that I've wanted to do since I very first started my channel. And that is a video about Ogham. Ogham's my favorite divination system, and I know I've said that before several times. But it's because it is. It's my favorite, and I just want to make a video about it and introduce some people to it, hopefully that are open to hearing about it. And if you haven't heard about it, then here you go, because you know we place a lot of emphasis on tarot and oracle decks in paganism, in our paganism now, in this neo-pagan world, as the main systems of divination. There's nothing wrong with those. I do oracle cards. I did a review on oracle cards. I love oracle. And I actually just recently ordered a tarot deck. I'm finally going to give tarot a shot. We'll see how it goes. But I'll definitely show them to you when they come in, because they are superhero themed, of course. And I will show those off. But tarot and oracle are like the main jams that neo-pagans are shown to use and that we use. And outside of that, sometimes you'll get runes. And I love runes too. Runes are badass. Who doesn't love runes? But I think it's strange that in like Celtic paganism, like in Celtic Reconstructionism, and a lot of like Celtic Wicca, Celtic centered paths, they'll still use runes. And that's kind of strange to me because, you know, runes came from the Anglo-Saxons and the Norse. You can debate which ones had it first. I say the Norse, but it comes from, you know, like Germanic and like Russian and Icelandic countries, and was absorbed into the Celtic like culture. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. After they were conquered / melded together with the Anglo-Saxons and such. But before that, they did have their own system, which was Ogham, and it's we don't know a lot about Ogham. Like, we don't know a whole lot about the Celts and the Celt deities. That's only know a little bit of information about a handful of the Tuatha De Danann. Because they didn't keep a written language. Everything was oral with them. Everything was oral with them. And, yeah, we don't have a lot of information on them, and that goes with the Ogham. So, there's not much I can really tell you about the history of Ogham, like where it came from, because we're not completely sure. I can just give you, like, accepted ideas about Ogham's origin. And one of those being that it came from the god Ogma, which makes sense, right? Ogham, Ogma. And Ogma is the god, Celtic god of, like, speech and language and poetry and the arts. And sometimes he's shown with a pierced tongue, and it's like really long. I think he's usually called Ogham the Silver Tongue, or Ogham Honey Tongued. He's called Honey Tongued because he's so smooth with his words. He was a gangster. Anyway, he he's so eloquent with his words and his speech. And sorry, I'm enjoying some sangria while I make this video. Sangria is my favorite adult beverage ever. Well, anywho, they say that Ogham came from Ogma. That Ogma gave Ogham to the people, but only to a select group of people, basically the Druids. So that would exclude, like, normal folks and fools and poor people and stuff like that. It was basically given to, like, the higher up people, because, the Druids weren't just priests and priestesses, like druidesses. They weren't just, like, shamans of their community. They were also, like, lawyers and judges and doctors. Pretty much anyone in the 1% of Celtic culture was a druid. And us regular folks were not. So, yeah, Ogham was given to the rich people. And, that's one theory. Another theory is that they actually came from Rome when Rome invaded and conquered the Celtic lands, like Britain and all of the other lands. And that they brought it with them. But we really don't know. We don't know. Regardless, in the early 1900s, I think, the 1910s or 20s, a guy named Robert Graves. Robert Graves? Yeah? I think that's his name. I'm doing this out of memory, so forgive me. Robert Graves, he wrote a book, a really good book, you should check it out, called The White Goddess. That's a really good book. I mean, take it for what it is, because it was written back then, so some of the information is stuff that we've probably all come across by now. But it was huge for its time. And anyway, The White Goddess, and in it he proposes that Ogham was a divination system, and he has all these Celtic myths that were, copied down by Celtic priests, Catholic priests, to back up his explanations of that. And so he gave out, the Ogham again. He gave their associations of, like, what they meant and everything, and basically said use it like the tarot. And so people have ever since, really. Robert Graves really helped bring Ogham back into the pagan consciousness. I would say. I would credit him with it. But, no, Ogham are awesome. I was drawn to Ogham because I was initially really into Celtic stuff. That was my family upbringing. That was the culture I was raised in. That was just what was readily available in paganism. I think we can all attest to that. It's mostly Celtic dominated. And so when I learned that they had their own divination system that no one was paying attention to, I had to go seek it out, and I found it, and I bought a set of 6. It's really hard to get your hands on some Ogham, though, because they are so on the fringe of our pagan consciousness, which is unfortunate, our current pagan consciousness. But I bought a set by Caitlin Matthews, who's written several books, along with, I think, a guy named John Matthews, I think. Anyway, they made a set, and Ogham are just slashes on wood. They're just slashes. Ignore that. I'll get to that in a second. They're just slashes and there's different numbered tally marks basically, and they mean things. And some of them are diagonal slashes, some are straight slashes. We'll get to that too. But since this is like I got a beginner's Ogham set. This was probably back around in 2008 or 2009 when I bought these. I got one that was like a beginner set, so it had the words written beside the tally marks and the letters in which they represent, letter or letters that they represented. That way it would be easy for me to learn what the hell these meant when I saw them. And I still use these. They're so tiny and fragile. But I still use these. I have never gotten a proper Ogham set. Although I've been really itching to lately to get like a really good one. But these have worked really great. I mean, I've had them for that long. So damn near like 7 years or something. So they've definitely worked well. But Ogham are all plants. Like the names of the Ogham are all plants. So each one's associated to a tree or a small shrub. And I think a few instances like a flower or such. But there are what? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 or so Ogham that are generally accepted as being the original Ogham. There are a couple others that were added later. We have that documented. We know that they were added later, like ones to represent not just trees, but like there's like a beaver and a wolf and some other plants and a couple animals, and we know those were added later. So most people use these, like the originals, that just are plants, like trees mostly. Yeah, just thought we'd go through them. I do have a book for reference because sometimes I forget what the accepted meanings are, and I'll just go with my own meanings. But I want to give you like the proper information about Ogham. But I'll just go through them for you, and I'll tell you, stuff about each one as we go. Oh, also, disclaimer, if you watched my video on the Wheel of the Year, you know that I like to pronounce things however the hell I want. I don't worry about trying to get pronunciations perfect with what they were meant to be spoken as. So, if some of these sound weird and not Celtic sounding, it's because I'm pronouncing it the way I want. But this is Quert. 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 This is Quert. Quert. And I roll my tongue a lot with R's, so it makes everything sound like, I don't know, maybe a mixture of like Russian and Latino. So it's definitely not Celtic, but Quert. And Quert is the apple. It is the apple tree. It represents apples. It represents letter Q. This is what Quert actually looks like, obviously, without the words. And Quert is the apple, and apple represents the other world, like Avalon, Annuin, Tirnaog, the Summerland, what's beyond the veil, like the good places beyond this veil that we have. And it also represents wisdom, which has a fairy tale connection, this is also the Ogham of magic. So, like, how apples are so sacred, especially in Snow White, for example. Deadly, but also magical items. So, apple. It's a loaded Ogham explanation for me to give you, but apple. Magic, divination, the other world, the other side. So, these are extremely open to interpretation when doing readings with them. But those are some guidelines for kind of what this means when it comes up. There is moon. Which is... Oh, I think I just forgot. Oh my gosh. I think I'm gonna have to look it up. I can't believe I forgot. Because I'm on the spot. Oh. Vine. It's the vine. It's the vine. Moon's the vine. It's in this book. And, yeah, the vine. And it means harvest, which makes sense, too, because you're plucking fruit from the vine. And, it's all about harvest and reaping the benefits of something that you've sown, celebration, harvest time. So the vine. We have Feren, or Fern, which is probably more of a correct pronunciation. Fern. Feren. I like to say Feren. Fern. And Fern is the alder. Yeah, this is nothing like what I normally think it means, but like I said, I was going to give you the correct meanings of the Ogham, not my version. So, Feren is the alder, and its meaning is good counsel and guidance, receiving spiritual guidance, intuition, wisdom, inspiration. Feren, alder. Usually when Feren comes up for me, when I'm using it for other people or for myself, I usually take it as an Ogham, meaning the overcoming of fear or a difficult journey, I guess. Which, again, I guess that's not quite what's generally accepted as meaning, but that's what it means to me. So, I love this one. On or on, une, on. I just like sometimes to just say on. Because I think this is the most French Gaelic, like French Celtic sounding one. On, and see the notches are on the top of it, which is really cool. On is the heather flower, and it represents sex, so I like to go on, because, you know. And anyway, it represents sex and sexuality and sensuality and passion and anything you want to associate sex with, really. There's Chinya, which looks like tin, or tinny, tinne. Chinya, which I think is actually the correct pronunciation. Chinya, and Chinya's 3 straight slashes, not sideways or anything. And Chinya is one that has a really rough pronunciation, so I am going to refer to the book. But before I get to it, I always explain it as Chinya is an Ogham that means obstacles that one are faced, that one overcomes, that makes you a better person. So basically, when this comes up, it's talking about shit that you've been through, that you got through, and it made you better for it. But there's no like one encapsulating word for that, is there? I don't know. Let's see what this book says. I'm referring to, by the way, a book called Celtic Lore and Spellcraft of the Dark Goddess, Invoking the Morrigan by Stephanie Woodfield. It's a really good book. So, Chinya. And see, Stephanie says that it means the holly plant. So that's nice. We all love holly. Who loves holly? Who doesn't love holly? The holly plant. And it represents challenges and trials, being under attack, taking action to defend yourself. So basically what I said too. I mean, Stephanie, you're on the same page. Oh, Salia. Or Sally. Sail. I say Salia. Salia, several slashes. I love these little sticks. They kind of make me think of like those potato sticks that you eat though. But anyway, Salia. And Salia is the willow tree. And who doesn't love a good willow tree too? And that represents intuition. It can also represent, though, death or a gateway to the underworld sometimes. Or sadness and depression. But usually in the Ogham it means intuition and following your third eye and stuff like that. Dur is probably the most famous Ogham because Dur is the root word for the word, accepted as the root word generally, for the word druid. So this was like the druid's main Ogham symbol was Dur. And Dur represents the oak tree. And, you know, if you've read up on Druidism or Druidry, whatever you want to call it, you know, Druid means one who knows the oak, or he who knows the oak. And so Dur is the Ogham of the oak tree. And oak trees represent wisdom. So Druids are supposed to be very wise because they knew the oak. They knew the secrets of the oak. The oak was considered to be the strongest tree because physically it is a very strong wood. It's the strongest tree, the oldest tree. They live to be super freaking old before they finally die, those trees. The biggest, tallest, strongest, the best, most wisest tree. So, Dur. Nin, or Nian. I usually say Nin. Nin is the ash tree, which is a beautiful white wood, if you've never seen it. And I mean white, like white tree. They usually grow right by water. In Greek mythology, they're sacred to Poseidon, I think. Is it Poseidon? For some reason, I'm thinking Zeus. Because I want to think about something about like lightning striking one. Anywho, I might be thinking of some battle between the two brothers. But Nien, it means transformation. Ruish, Ruis, I say Ruish. Ruish, many slashes, and they're diagonal. If you can see that, they're not straight slashes. They're like foop. Ruish means a reddening of the face. I forget what the actual plant is. The elder tree. But Ruish, and it literally does mean like a reddening of the face. So that can be like through anger or rage, or it could be like through embarrassment or subconsciousness. That's what I say it means. However, I know that is not the generally accepted one. So the Stephanie Woodfield, and I'm sure the generally accepted meaning of Ruish is knowledge gained from experience, moving forward, shedding old habits, transformation, the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new one. No longer holding on to the past. So, hell yeah. There's Huah! Or Huath. It's just one little slash. And, Huath is, man, you know, you would think I didn't know how to read these. I haven't referred to the book. Jesus. Hawthorne. And, Hawthorne, tree. And it represents, a lot of these represent, by the way, like challenges and like blockages and like negative things, which is, side note for a second if we pause, I think that's why a lot of people have problems with the Ogham, or maybe it doesn't get as much light and visibility as it should, because it does deal with a lot of negative topics. But, I mean, that's freaking life. Why not have a divination set that covers the negative stuff, the bad stuff? So I guess you could say it's a form of dark divination in that sense, because there are a lot of traditionally negative or dark or shadow concepts in Ogham. A lot of like blocks and curses and like barriers and boundaries in Ogham. A lot of warnings in Ogham, not a lot of happy messages. It's all about really dealing with your shit and getting your shit together, which is why I like it, because that's been the main crutch of my practice and my readings that I give other people. All of my readings usually for other people usually have to deal with pain. Well, I call it pain work. It's an aspect of shadow work to me, specifically dealing with your pain, exercising your pain. So pain work, Ogham's perfect for pain work, and that's what I use it a lot for me and my friends and strangers that I give readings to, and shadow work. So, anywho, Huath is challenges. It's the Hawthorne again. It means challenges, obstructions to obtaining a goal, complications concerning love. There's Ur. And Ur, I get on and Ur mixed up, actually, even on my own. And like I said, I've been reading these since like 2009, and I still do not profess to be an expert at Ogham at all. Like, I still have to sit here and really sometimes rack my brain about what they're supposed to mean. Because, like with cards, oracles or whatever, and runes, and when I cast the bones and everything, I'm so used to going off of my own intuition and my own feelings about what things mean, not generally accepted meanings. So, it makes it kind of hard when I want to review things like this. Because everything I do is very instinctual. It's not by the book. It's not by rules. Which I guess some people could say is kind of chaotic, but it just works for me. But Ur. Oh, correction on the sex one I was telling you about earlier. Does represent sex and everything, and love and sex, but it's the gorse flower. This, see, I get them mixed up. Ur is the heather flower. And Ur is heather, and it represents healing, creating a sacred balance, love, and fertility. I kind of like to think of On as being like sex and like lust, and Ur as being like love and passion and connection. So On's like the hookup Ogham, And that's so gross. I can't believe I said that. And Ur is like the long-term relationship. Ogham. Then we have Beth. I said Beth, like Beth, just the name Beth. Beth. That's actually the very first Ogham in the alphabet. Excuse me. And it is the birch tree. There's a whole myth about how this is the very first Ogham ever created and given to man by Ogma. So it's the first. This is the first Ogham, Beth, representing the birch tree, Beth. And it's the birch. It represents new beginnings, a fresh start, renewal, truth. So it makes sense why it'd be the first. Cull, or Cole, Call. I say Cull, which I think is actually the correct pronunciation as well. Cull. And Cull is Hazel. Thank you, Buck. Hazel, and it represents connection to the ancestors, forgotten wisdom. What does she say? Enlightenment. So, Cull. Ida. I say Ida. I know there's a completely different pronunciation. It's like Ayo or Aya. Let's see. Yeah, Ida. Ida. She sang Ida as well, so that's good. But sometimes I have heard like Aya and Ayo because there's another Ogham that is very similar to this that we'll get to very soon that have similar names. But when you pronounce them correctly. So Ida is the white poplar or the aspen tree. It's two trees. And it's overcoming doubt and fear, overcoming obstacles, inner guidance. So again, you see a lot of these are very similar. They're all about like guidance and obstacles and bullshit in your life. Stroff, by the way, interesting story about this. It's supposed to be 4 slashes. Like 1, 2, 3, 4 diagonal slashes. Stroff is the blackthorn plant, which is a thorny plant, like a briar. And it represents pain and wounds and pain. It represents a lot of like negativity. It's like, to me, it's the most negative or bad or evil Ogham in the deck. In the patch. In the set. Is definitely the most intense to me. Blackthorn. A lot of people who practice like curses and hexes and bullshit like that in their magic will use Stroff to bring, because it means strife. So you could just call it strife if you wanted. I say Stroff. To bring about strife to people's lives. Somewhere along the way, this Ogham has started to disintegrate on me and fall apart, which is, I think, great because it represents wounding, and now the actual Ogham is wounded for Stroff or strife. It has been through strife. I like that. It's a missing piece. I like that. That one I didn't have to look up at all, did I? The Alm. Just one little slash. Alm. The Alm. I never get the Alm in readings, even for other people. Seriously, like ever. It never ever comes up, which is strange. I guess you could take that however you wanted. But Alm is the pine or the fir tree. So the pine tree, fir tree. And it represents initiations, birth, death, beginning of a new phase in your life, foresight and farsightedness, and a clear vision of a situation. I do remember this Ogham now because in ancient Celtic times, they would climb alm trees because they are considered to be some of the tallest trees, I guess next to oak, but considered to be like the tallest tree. And they would climb up to this high as they could and then sit and meditate and look over the landscape to change their perspectives on their problems. And then we have, oh yeah, Ida. This is the one that's like the one I mentioned earlier. Like Ida, Io, Aya. They're very similar. And this one is the yew tree, which is death, and sometimes it's called the devil's walking stick. So I think that sums it up pretty good about what that means. And then there's Louis. And actually, I'm going to pause this for a moment and come back because my camera only does 30 minutes at a time and we're about to run over and I don't want it to cut me off. So I shall return. Okay, so anywho. Luis. I say Luis because Louis just sounds crazy. Luis. And it, the actual symbol is just 2 little slashes. And Luis is, the Rowan. It's the second letter in the alphabet. And it represents protection and being shielded from harm. So finally an Ogham that protects you from all the other bullshit in the Ogham. And Gort, this is one of my favorites. I definitely don't have to refer to the book on this one. Gort is the ivy plant, or the fern sometimes, and it is all about resilience. So I think it could definitely be like a kudzu. I mean, Ogham. Although I think they later did add a kudzu, but which is redundant because this could totally represent kudzu. And Gort is about the warrior. So go figure that I like it. It's about the warrior mentality, protecting yourself, protecting your loved ones, protecting your assets, fighting for what's right, discernment, picking your battles, standing up for yourself and other people. All the stuff that's what a warrior is. Basically having a damn backbone. Not like people walking all over you. Nietel. I love Nietel too. It's the broom plant. Well, it's a broom flower. It's like a little bush with yellow flowers, sometimes white. Broom. And since it's the broom, this is completely coincidental that their name is broom and it represents this though. But it's the broom plant and it represents cleansing and cleaning and clearing the energy of the self or a situation or a person. But anywho, that's the Ogham, you guys. And I really like them. I haven't used them in quite some time. I've been really heavy on throwing the bones. And it kind of makes me sad because as I was making this video, I realized I'm starting to forget some of my stuff about the Ogham. That's really sad. So I'm going to have to go back to them now. But, yes, this book is really great, again. It's what I used to draw my help from in this video. It's a really good book. You should check that out. You know, I'm always giving book recommendations. Yes, you guys, that's the gist of Ogham. And I hope you liked it. I really love them. Poor things have been neglected so much in my practice lately for them to be my favorite. That's it, you guys. And I hope you enjoyed learning about the Ogham. Ogham does have 2 spellings, so if you go to Google it and look around, use it with or without the H. It's a lot like the Morrigan. You know, sometimes people spell Morrigan with an H after the G, and sometimes they don't. It's the same with Ogham. Sometimes it's GH, sometimes it's not. I like using the H's. I even spell Odin with an H after the D, which is absurd, I know, but I like H's, I guess. Anywho, that was a ramble. Thanks, you guys. Take care, and learn about the Ogham, because it's really cool. Bye.